Fritz Mott here at Down Hall for Denville Community Media, and we last week witnessed a wonderful presentation from the Denville Public Library, Jamie Grasso and her Help Is at Hand speech therapy. And Jamie, you employed a favorite of all of ours.
Yep, a very famous Dr. Seuss, our author of choice in my eyes, to explain speech therapy in a way that would be really parent friendly for you guys to understand the prompt system. And prompt therapy is a special kind of speech therapy, and so we did it through Dr. Seuss. So enjoy the training, and thank you to the Denville Library for having me.
Dibble dibble, dop dop. Yes. Enjoy.
I love Dr. Seuss. I love everything about him and all the things, the people that continued writing books after him. But I was talking to the library and I said, look, I would like to share something for you guys. What could I share? And they actually were like, can you share stuff that like our parents might be concerned about their speech, in their language, whatever. And then I was like, well, let me just teach them about prompt and through Dr. Seuss. So this book, this beautiful little baby, and honestly, it's not the easiest. It's not the easiest Dr. Seuss book. So I wouldn't even say start with it, but I'm just using this as an example to show you guys how this one book can be actually taught many different objectives throughout it, okay? It moves pretty quick, and it goes from sound to sound, and it actually it has really no rhyme or reason, to be honest with you. So, Mr. Brown can move, one book, many objectives, okay? I just want to tell you quickly about me and Help Is at Hand. We are a speech language pathology center right in downtown Denville, across the way from Acme. That's our address right at the screen. And we have a sound and speech solution program, which is really connected to, it really connects you, the parents, to not only the therapy techniques, but other professionals that I have employed as part of the program. So you don't just have me, you have like 4 people who are all professionals. 2 SLPs, 2 of which are also special education teachers, and then you've got a teacher of the deaf, and 3 of those people are auditory verbal therapy certified, which we can talk about a little later, and then we all understand prompt and we can teach prompt too, okay? Me, myself, I went to UConn, I went to Montclair State for my graduate, so that's my alma mater, and I have 23 years of experience. I can't believe that that's the number. For 19 years, I worked at Bergen County Special Services, and then I moved to Denville, which actually kind of prompted me to work with the Denville School District, so I got a chance to really be in the school district and understand how they all work, and that was very helpful for me as a parent and me as a professional, and actually helps out my clients. So part of the program is teaching the parents that are in the program the eligibility process in itself. Just that is part of the actual program. And then I opened Help Is at Hand in 2019. So we're 5 years strong, and I'm doing my dream job. Okay, so we're all speech language pathologists certified by ASHA. Some of the SLPs that you may have met may not be, so just check in on that. That's good to know. We are certified prompt therapists. That's a huge step in prompt level 1, prompt level 2, prompt level 3, prompt certified. It actually took me 8 years to get certified. So just to give you an idea, I started in 2001 and I didn't get certified until 2008, and I didn't stop. So it takes a long time to be certified. So if you see that behind somebody's name, that means they know their stuff. And prompt is to understand a child's motor speech system, which is why you guys are here tonight, to understand that and how it's connected to this beauty, and lead them to beautiful, clear speech through the hierarchy, which I'll show you guys in our slides, okay? And you'll really be like an expert by the end of tonight. We're also listening and spoken language specialists, which are actually very different from prompt, but that is also our specialty. So we do what's called auditory verbal therapy, and it's really about taking in the sound, understanding the sounds and understanding the language, and then creating abundant language, and abundant language with that, and also being able to follow directions, right? It's all auditory. So that's that. And so now I want to get to the prompt difference. So I want you to take a close look at this slide and tell me if any of you guys have seen that chart or a version of that chart anywhere. Yeah, you know?
Are those like
No.
sounds? I can't see it.
Yes, I know, and I actually was afraid of that. So if you guys can't see, it's individual sounds that are like, it's every single phonetic sound, 26 of them, and then the ages that they should be acquired. On the right side is the prompt motor speech hierarchy. So, and let me just point out a couple huge differences. What makes prompt different, and that's what I want to make sure that you guys understand, is that on the left, the speech acquisition chart, it's really what all speech evaluations have been bound by, okay? So like when you are getting a speech evaluation, articulation, not language, just the articulation, they are literally using this or a version of it. It's the exact same information, could be different colors. It's literally called like the Iowa, Nebraska norms, okay? On the right, like I said, is the prompt system of evaluating a kid or a child, it could be actually also an adult, but it's based on, your articulators, your lips, your tongue, your jaw, and actually it goes literally like this, like our lungs, our jaw, our labial facial control, which is our lips and our cheek, our lingual control, which is our tongue, and then sequence movements, it's a little bit more complicated to describe, and I'll tell you later, and then prosody, which is like the cherry on the top, okay, which is what makes like speech interesting and kind of, nice to listen to instead of wah, 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 right, like Charlie Brown. So it's a bottom-up approach, it's like math. I always equate it to math, because if you don't have the bottom, you can't get to the middle, right? If you don't have good phonatory control, you can't get. Cat will not sound like cat, it will be like, right? So we'll get further on, but that's a huge difference, right? Motor speech versus individual sound acquisition. So, and again, every single traditional speech and language therapist you've ever met, unless they were a prompt certified person or even prompt trained, goes based on this. So it's all about in grad school we learn acquisition, this sound we should work on first, and then you work on that sound because it should be developed until later. I call BS on that, okay? I say that is just not simply true. A baby, think about it this way too, just the fact that, I want to point out a little illogicness, and I don't mean to really pound on this, but think about the illogic of a baby not being able to say mama at 1 or 2 years old, right? Most babies, most toddlers should be able to say baba or mama or ma by at least even 18 months, 16 months, right? But they're saying that a B should not be acquired until 4 years old, or an M shouldn't be required till 4, and that the age of acquisition is between 2 and 4. That's just not simply even A, logical, or B, intelligible, right? So even if that came from scientific studies of thousands of babies, if you really think about it, that's not gonna bode well when we can't say mama as a 2-year-old. Our kids are gonna get frustrated. We're gonna be so sad, right? It's not gonna bode well for little play dates, little baby and toddler play dates. So it's just a matter of it's sad, to me, as a prompt therapist, that like everything is based on that. So that's what I love about prompt. That's why I love it so much, because we are dealing with what needs to be done based on intelligibility of speech and function, right? Like how our kid is functioning with their little kid friends, or functioning with grandma or mom or dad or brother, right? Like if they can't be understood, I don't give a flying you know what this says. It's not okay, right? We've got to build it up from where they are, and then get them to the next spot, okay? Any questions on that? Major difference, right? Motor speech and individual sound acquisition. So this is just a little bit more about prompt. You know, we are trained through the Institute. We use touch to teach the clients how to use their lips, jaw, and tongue. So I'm literally putting my hands on my client's mouth. I might even be touching just their throat, just to get that, you know, idea of phonatory control going, the voicing going. But we evaluate, because the motor speech hierarchy does what it does, this beautiful situation, and I love these little graphics that Barb put in, my colleague who's actually, you know, in the program. She's our family support coach. It builds the area of intervention and practices the movements to build motor speech memory, because that's what we need. We need to like teach individual movements, but that will build redundant like practice. Like, okay, I know how to say mom because I've been practicing that movement over and over and over again with Miss Jamie or whatever. So it starts with breath, right? Then goes, and you begin at the bottom, then goes to jaw, labial facial control, tongue movement. And that little gear thing, I think that's genius. And she's not even a prompt therapist, but it's genius. That's when everything's working together. Sequence movements is like everything working together. This little boy said to me today, he actually is pretty much what you would call nonverbal. You know, we more empathetic SLPs would call it like limited verbal. But he said toy today. And he's only like 6 or 7 sessions in. And I was like, yes. And I said to Dad, I was like, can I videotape this moment? And he actually gave me permission to show it to you guys maybe later on. But toy is a great example of sequence movement. Dropping the jaw, T is the lingual control, dropping the jaw, oi, right? So forward, then back. That's it, boom, that's sequence movement. So, I mean, you see how complicated this is and how it's like not just about individual sounds, but it's about movements. And like when we talk about like Mr. Brown can move, a lot of these are pretty darn complicated. Blur, slur, that's crazy, but that's a really good complicated, sequence movement and lingual control word. So we're gonna do a little scavenger hunt in a bit. Thank you so much. Okay, so again, this is the same graphic, but I just wanted to point out that, you know, it's a little bit of a closer up. This lady right here, like this image shows that what it would look like for a clinician to be helping a little boy with jaw stability. So your kids might not, that you're thinking of, or, you know, or a friend's kid might not even have jaw problems, right? They might be up and down, jaw grading very nicely, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, which is exactly how we discuss it as a prompt therapist, like level 1, level 2. So I just want to turn my back for you because I want you guys to read this. And as I do this, I want you guys to all just silently make those sounds so that you can feel your jaw and where they are, okay? So, because we identified that that's where the boy needs, probably all the lexicon and all the words that this little boy is working, redundantly practicing, is based on jaw control. So level 1 would be like E. So just say E in your head, or you know, you can say it out loud if you want to, and just feel where your jaw is. E, that's level 1. It's also hit, like it, or hit, right? Level 2 would be like like as in head. You're just dropping it slightly. But if your kid doesn't have good jaw control, it might be like head, right? It might automatically turn into an But if they have good jaw control, it'll stay an okay?
Level 3, as in hat, okay, or apple. And level 4 is the furthest or the widest, is like as in hot, right? Or actually O. I didn't type that in, but O is also the widest, you know? So if you, for example, see your kid saying like he says go, but he's saying like go, and he's not really holding it open long enough, timing-wise, to make it a good O, then he's got jaw issues and labial facial control issues. So a lot of times a prompt therapist is looking at actually every time, is looking at 3 different levels at the same time, pretty much. When I pick lexicon for my clients, I'm like, all right, number 1 problem, number 2 problem, number 3 problem. It's not always pretty and neat like that. Sometimes it's like number 1 problem, number 2 problem, number 3 problem. But that's way beyond the pale of, you know, what I want you guys to even understand, right? But we always are considering all the systems and how they work together, okay? Any questions on that? Okay. All right, so here we are with Dr. Seuss. So I kind of want to just take a look at, and I literally took a picture of this because I was like, you guys aren't going to see this too, but you know, you can see it. So just even in the front page, let's take a look at these weirdo words and sounds. And, you know, we actually call them onomatopoeias. So an onomatopoeia is just the name of a sound. Like tick-tock, tick-tock is actually the name of that sound. Like what a clock makes, what does the clock make? It makes tick-tock. So that's what Dr. Seuss is doing, and that's why it's called the Book of Wonderful Noises, because that's what they are. So, you know, without going into it too deep, what is cool about this book is that you can have them kind of practice making these sounds, but if they're not making the sounds correctly, it's okay. It's just a matter of like knowing which sounds you guys should hone in on, and so that's what we're gonna do. So let's talk about, I wanna follow this really closely so I don't skip too fast. So let's start at the bottom of the hierarchy, breath control, right? Can anyone see a fun sound that would build breath control? Look at it and just kind of think about it. That would build this motor speech skill. If you don't know, it's okay, but just look. Breath control. See anything? Shout it out if you know it. All of us, I mean, you're right in that everything needs breath control, but like just the, where is it? Whoo. A kid who might say, ooh, doesn't have good breath control. So you have to listen very carefully and you have to have a trained ear. Like, are they actually using the breath before the you? Like, who? Like, do they know to take a breath? Our kid had that issue. She would talk a lot. Didn't sound good, but it would also run out at the end of like the phrase. And she'd sound like Mickey Mouse, like at the end of the phrase. It was because she didn't have good breath control. So she spoke maybe more than one of the kids you're thinking about right now, right? But she didn't have good breath control, which is at the bottom, you know? So you have to consider it all. Let's think, what else would be, like what would be a good one for the foundation of, well, I was gonna say, the breath control is obviously the foundation of clear audible speech. You guys understand that, right? Like you can't get through the word straw without a good breath to support your throat. Okay. So now let's pick one for phonatory control. So phonation control is another tricky one, but can you think of just one? Don't think of it complicated. Think of a really nice, like something that would make our voice stay at least 2 to 3 seconds. Which one? Yes, exactly. Moo. Okay, good. I'm doing my job. I just want to make sure you guys understand this. That's all I'm here for. Moo requires a nice audible into the oo, right? If we lose voice, we might go or you know, it might be breathy, or it might be like moo. I've had that too, like too quick. You gotta hold on to it, and they might be doing it too quick, not to get it over with. They truly don't have this and this down pat. You know what I mean? Okay. Oh, and pop pop. because it can't be Bob, Bob, or bop, bop. It has to be pop, pop. Where is it? It has to be voiceless with the P. Turn your voice on for the ah and turn your voice off for the p. I just want you guys to think about for a second. Just think about the kids you're thinking of, like that you're here for. Do you hear in your mind like any voicing, like, oh, they voiced it when they shouldn't have, or they like didn't voice it when they should have? Is that like, does that make a sense at all? You know, like cat shouldn't be gat, right? It's still in the back, sure, you're getting your tongue back there, but it shouldn't be gat, it's cat. So, and actually, to be fair, this is kind of what we're talking about a little bit, is sequenced movement. It's like, can you turn on your voice on and off during the course of a full audible word? Okay. All right, yeah, so actually I said here in my notes, if your child doesn't sound quite right, but looks like they're saying it correctly, it actually could be a voicing problem. You might be like, there's something off, I just can't tell what it is. It could be a voicing issue. In fact, it actually takes a really trained prop therapist to like I couldn't understand it in the beginning. Like while I was going through my certification, I'm like, I just don't get it. And my mentor was like, it's voicing, don't you hear that? And I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So it's not something you're expected to be able to hear, but that's what we're here. So how about jaw control? This is kind of an easy one. Like I just want you to think of up and down movements, jaw control. And say them, like in your mind, or say them out loud. Like eek, eek, boom, boom, dop, dop. Like watch your jaw going up and down. What would be an up and down movement?
Sizzle, 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 sizzle.
Sizzle, sizzle.
Sizzle,
So
but-
sizzle actually requires really good jaw control because you have to keep it up at that level. The whole word you have to keep up at level 1. Sizzle, sizzle. So if I have like a 7-year-old who's just not like, it's because he's dropping his jaw a little bit. I'm actually thinking of one particular kid. I might make him say sizzle just to keep his jaw so that his lingual control, his tongue control sounds that much better, okay? But no, dop, dop,
Dop, dop.
would be a really good one. Pop, pop is another great one. A great book for jaw control is actually Hop on Pop. So hop on pop. No, you can't hop on pop. And then there's like, the whole book is so awesome for jaw control. But in this, it would be dop, dop. Actually, even moo, moo, you have to hold it up. Moo, moo, you have to hold it up to the level 1. And then chew, chew. But again, I'm gonna go into labial facial. Let's talk about labial facial. Like, I want you to think of like e's and oohs and that back and forth movement. E, ooh. So what do you see there? That could be a good ooh and an e. Moo is great, exactly. Moo is a perfect example of what we call protrusion or rounding. So you see how a lot of words are like multiple things. And it depends on like what the kid even wants to say, right? Like if they want to play with like, if they don't like farm animals, I'm not gonna pick moo moo, but I might be like, ooh, the light toy, you know? Like that's what he wants to talk about. That's what's gonna help him comment on what he's playing with. But moo moo, and then eek eek. Eek, we have to have good retraction when we say me, it's my turn. It's not my turn, it's my turn, right? So eek eek, moo, what was another couple? And boom boom. Boom boom is great. In fact, a lot of times I'll do like bam bam, like especially like, for the boys want to like hit stuff and like build the tower and knock it down, like let's go bam bam, because it's the open and then it's the nice closure. Bam bam. We might even say bop bop. But bop's actually trickier than bam bam. What else do we have for, scroll down there. So I think we're at lingual control, right? So this is where, that was sizzle sizzle. Lingual control, sizzle sizzle, oh my God. Say it, sizzle sizzle. Your tongue has to be so refined, right? Like the movements, sizzle sizzle. What other word would you say is a good lingual or tongue control one? Blurp, slurp, splat, splat, the S, the P, well not the P, but the S, the L, the A, actually, and then the T, to end it with the T. And you probably all recognize that SPL, right, the 3 consonants in a row, that's tough stuff. So you've gotta have good jaw control to make sure that you're like, right? And then you've gotta have good jaw control to get that tongue up there flat. So when a traditional speech therapist picks S words, because that's what the kid needs to work on, wait a second, what kind of S words are you working on? Are you working on so and I don't know, I'm thinking of like jaw control, like stew, because that would be great if he needs good, jaw control, and he also needs to work on labial facial control, and he also needs to work on S. But you can't pick a word like splat or even sit, right? If they are like retracted like that, we were talking about the retractor state before, if they're retracted and you're like, oh, let's talk about sit, then you're adding to the problem. You're not breaking the bad motor habit, you're creating it, you're holding it, So a lot of times prompt therapists, especially like if you haven't, the people who I get who are walking in the door at like 6 or 7, maybe 5, 6 or 7, have those bad motor habits that I've got to kind of break. And unfortunately, those 6 or 7-year-olds get very cognizant of the issues, and they're like, I don't want to be here. So it's good that you guys are all here in the early stages, okay? Because you don't want your kid to like be conscious of like, it's okay to make mistakes, but you don't want them to be like, I can't work on this because I'm too embarrassed because I know exactly what you're saying. You're saying that I don't sound good, You want to catch it before that moment. Okay, so sequence movements are tough, so I'm not even gonna, basically the same words as we use with lingual control are also good sequence movements. And I gave the toy example, but also like sizzle, that's all sequence movement. You have to turn on your voice, turn it off, turn it on, your tongue's gotta be in the right place, it's all together, right? So the lingual control, making sure there is good voicing, no extraneous, I'm gonna say this twice, no extraneous movements, so there's not like extra movements that you see the kids saying when they're trying to say the word, okay? So if there's a little, what we call groping, and this is like the system analysis that happens even before all this, we fill this out to figure out exactly what's going on. I'll just actually pass this around. And then we're like, okay, where are they based on that? Where are they in the hierarchy? That's like much less parent friendly, okay? So that's why I'm only showing you this. But basically, not that you're not intelligent women, but it's just a lot of gobbledygook. I lost my train of thought. Oh, extraneous movements. So groping is one of the questions on there. It's like that would be groping. Like I'm like literally visually showing or searching for how to say that sound. Or like, that's groping. If we see that, you absolutely need speech therapy immediately. Like I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, okay? You definitely need to make sure that they are practicing those movements. Over and over and over again, so they don't even have to think about it. Those neuromuscular connections have just been connected and they will not break, right? It's like soccer. I always talk about this. Sweet spot. Over and over again. Don't even have to think about it. You get in the field, all of a sudden, boom, you know exactly where that ball has to hit your foot, right? That's how speech is. So that's what sequence movement is. It's like, okay, is it all happening all together? And is it all coordinated? And is it symmetrical? So if it's like splat, right, if it's like splat and it sounds good, but it doesn't look good, that's also a problem. Because when you say splat in a sentence, you're probably gonna mess it up, you know? As the utterances get longer, it gets harder. So, but another good, like grum is good sequence movement example. Tick tock, clop, which is actually later in the book and it's not there. So prosody, that's the cherry at the top. like, do you guys already know, basically, just what prosody is? It's like intonation, it's that sing-song tone in our voice, it's that motherese that we all use, right? It's like, oh, you're such a cute little baby. Like, prosody is what makes speech sound nice to listen to. No matter what the language is, a lot of, different languages have different prosodic features. But if we, oh goodness, if we don't have prosody, our sound, our speech will sound like this, or it will sound like this. Like, if we don't know when to pause, and then there's also like just phrasing and timing, taking breaths. I've had clients just come to me just straight. He just goes on and doesn't know when to stop. Like, we're right at the top, right at prosody, Yeah, so you can make the case that all utterances your child should have good prosodic features and good intonation, right? So even like mama, it shouldn't be like mama. It should be like mama, you know what I mean? It should be like, or ma, like even if it's up. So again, even at the youngest ages, we should pay attention to all this, which makes another case to not do sound acquisition, because they're not even talking about that. And my kid did not even get eligible for speech services, because they were like, she can say be, get, ka, and ta, and da. I'm like, yeah, but she's running out of air. You can't understand her at the end of 2 words. And they're like, but that's not on the chart. And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Her friends and her teachers don't understand her. So I had to fight, you guys. I had to fight. And I was here in this town, and I had to fight. And they knew who I was, you know what I mean? So it's not an easy process. So I don't, I've worn both hats. And in fact, 3 out of the 4 team members that are on Sound and Speech Solution have worn both hats, just so you guys know that. That's it for that one. And then, so prompt therapy also, what is another awesome thing for this one, and I'll stand for this because this is an important piece. Prompt therapy is very different also from traditional therapy because we really truly consider like 3 main, what they call domains: social emotional domain of the child or the person. And I keep saying child, but I've had adults and I've had teenagers. Cognitive linguistic, physical sensory. So we really have to pay attention to like, what do they need to understand cognitively and linguistically? And we pick the lexicon and the targets based on that. So if like the social worker's like, or that's a bad example. If the academic teacher is like, I don't know, she just can't, she just keeps skipping over numbers and she's not getting it, I might pick that as my target, but like focus only on like the jaw control of every single number or whatever, you know what I mean? So we have to consider, that's like a really dumbed down example, but that's like cognitive linguistic. Or if like the kid's not commenting, I'm like, oh, okay, that's the linguistic target we need to work on. Ooh, wow, like that's so cool. Like if he said, you know what I mean? So I'll pick those words in that area of cognitive linguistic. So it's perception, sensation, discrimination, recognition, and concept formation. Physical sensory is, we really pay attention to where the kid is at, like physically. Like are we in, you guys ever heard the zones of regulation? That's what we follow at Help Is at Hand, is like where the kid's at physically and also emotionally. Like if I'm in the green zone, I'm ready to learn, ready to talk, ready to listen. But if I'm in the red zone and I'm like so angry and I'm completely out of control, I can't do anything. What do I need to do as the parent, as the caregiver, as the therapist to get them back into the green zone so we can continue to work? So we're not just gonna like push, push, push. We are not behavioral therapists. I'll repeat that. We are not behavioral therapists. So we work around the problem rather than being like, you can't do that, because we're human. And they are too. So we have to like pay attention to this. And then social emotional, how we're feeling, and also what we need to do socially. Again, commenting, things like that. And interpersonal relationships, like our interpersonal interactions, if that's the lacking part, every lexicon I'm going to do is going to be like, I want to take a turn. Turn might be my focus, or I want. But that sentence is what I pay attention to. So that's what's really good about prompt is like we really, I mean, I'm not just saying that. We really create our lexicon based on this. So typically when you see a prompt therapist, they're not the table sitters. You know, they're not doing the cards. They're like jumping on the balls and rolling, they're making Play-Doh, things like that. And that's basically all for prompt. And then basically somebody was like, oh, you should probably talk about who it's good for and like what's your parent role. So, and this is very honest, so if it insults you in any way, I feel like when I typed it, I felt like somebody might be insulted by that, but I'm saying it anyway. Our best clients are the people who are willingness to learn, right? And to be coached. And you have to be intrinsically willing to be coached. You can't just be like, oh, I'm willing to be coached, and I'm not gonna listen to anything that she says. You know, I've had those parents that are like, I'm gonna, and then they like talk over me, or they like talk to their kid while I'm trying to like create chaos, because chaos is what needs to be created in that moment. But also active participation in your child's therapy and the parent training portal and on all the calls we provide. So I mentioned that before, I'm glad I did. And now you know what I'm talking about. So it can't just be like a passive role. Like our best clients are those people. We've had other kinds of clients, it's taken them longer, but our best clients are the ones that are involved. Wouldn't you say, Michael? Like it's kind of, yeah, it's that way. And then the clients, like the actual client who's receiving the prompt therapy is obviously needs to be, let's be honest, they need to be accepting of touch on your face, right? If we have to work towards that, fine, sure, we can work towards that. But like, you know, it's best if they, you know, have the ability to not be aversive to it. There's nothing really, there's a lot you can do about it, but if you walked into our doors and that was not the case, we could get you there, you know what I mean? That the child is intrinsically driven to communicate rather than just passive. Like I just wanna I don't care about actually communicating with you, but again, I say that with a caveat, like we can work with those kids. I'm just saying it's the best, like those are the quickest clients that are like, I want to say this and I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna try to say it. It just means that they're gonna get there a little bit quicker. That's all. It doesn't mean we can't work on kids who are hiding behind the table, because trust me, we have. Have most or aggressive, if any, behaviors under control. You know, again, you can work with them, but it's easier if we don't have to, you know, dodge a flying iPad or something like that. And then all diagnoses really are appropriate for prompt. People are like, oh, what's it appropriate? I'm like, how could you say like a kid who doesn't say his R can't be benefited from prompt? Like if he feels the he's gonna be like, oh yeah, that's where it's, okay, you know, but then you could have a completely very, very apraxic child who like is barely talking, and those are like nothing other than prompt, I feel like is what is good for that particular diagnosis. Like we are the best at verbal apraxia. It's the hardest diagnosis when it comes to speech motor delay, but prompt is the best for it. Yeah. Do you feel like you got a good sense of like what prompt's all about?
I do. It's something I've got to try and get my son and daughter-in-law to understand.
Yeah. So we'll post this on the replay on the Help Is at Hand Facebook group.
Denville Community Media here at Town Hall, and we've just seen a wonderful presentation by Jamie Grasso.
And Dr. Seuss.
And Help Is at Hand, a
Hope
wonderful presentation on behalf of the Denville Public Library. And Jamie, wonderful of you to volunteer your time and present.
Happy
and
to do so.
If people would like to learn more about speech therapy and so forth, they can contact you at Help Is at Hand.
Yeah, helpisathand.org is our website, but you can check us out and always make sure that you stay tuned to Denville Community, Media, and also the library, Denville Library.
And the library has many, many great programs coming up, so stay tuned, and away we go.
Away we go.
Mr. Brown can moo.
Can you?
See you around town.